Brittany from Imagine This, a music and art studio for both adults and children, and today we are going to go over Art 2's lesson, continuing off of last week, body proportions. Now more specifically today we're going to go over different kinds of body proportions because everyone has their own unique and beautiful shape to their body, and they're not all like our little stick man that we used last week. But before we get into this, I just want you to know that there are no mistakes, only happy accidents, just as our good friend Bob Ross said, and so keep that in mind as we're doing our work. Okay, so what you'll need for this lesson, you will need some paper and a pencil, and that's it. You should have this lying around your house. Okay, so we're going off of the same idea of last week, building the body with shapes. But the shapes I'm thinking of, and that will be shown in the corner over here, are far different from our little stick man right here. This woman has a lot more curves to her, she's a lot bigger, and so we need to alter the shapes to really portray that as well. So we're going to be very close to what we started off with last week, starting off with the head and a circle shape. So we're going to start off right about here, and this is the base of the head. It's not the full head, we still have to encompass the chin and everything else that goes with it. And then we also need our line of motion. Now this particular girl has her hip out like this, so I'm going to try my very best to make sure that line of motion conveys a slight movement within that hip area. So just imagine a line drawn at the top of your head to your feet and imagine the motion that it would make. Just like last week using line of motion. And this doesn't matter too much if you draw it too long, too short. Don't worry about it, this is the underlying sketch of your entire drawing. Okay, and now we need those arms. Now her arms again are on her hips, so about ½ an inch or less down from the head or the circle, we are going to draw the motion lines for the arms. And I just like to think of these as two sideways mountains or Dorito shapes, kind of. Whichever you are more comfortable thinking of. Okay, so now we have our basic little stick man genie, and so we need to build off of that to really convey the size of this woman in all her glory. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this time. Remember how last week we talked about building a basic square? Well, we're going to make that square a little bit bigger in order to encompass the size of the woman within the picture right here. Now, this helps in a lot of different ways. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a square. If someone has a more rounded figure, you can use a large circle to encompass their size and proportions. I'm going to stick with the square in this scenario, but to draw a bigger person, I draw a bigger square. So starting off between those two lines, creating that shoulder area and creating a much bigger square. I'm going to make it nice and big. She's a beautifully large woman, so we want to convey that. Sorry if it's a little light, I'll draw it a little bit darker. Normally I would do this with Sharpies, but our Sharpies have died out, so we're just going to go a bit darker with the pencil here. Okay, so now we have a much bigger square to encompass the larger shoulders and the larger torso. And again, the hip area is going to be very similar to last week where we're going to create a triangle to encompass it. I've also heard of it as the bikini area just because it encompasses the body like a bikini in a triangle motion. So I'm just going to do that, another large shape to encompass this, going off of our rectangular torso. And so now we're starting to build a little bit more of a body, a little bit of a larger body. So basically you're just going to alter all the shapes that we went through and make them bigger. So the circles for the arms to show where the shoulder blades are, those are going to be bigger because her arms are bigger as well. And then same for the legs down here. The circle for the legs, bigger. That one's way bigger. I'm going to encompass that because that one looks more correct. Okay, and just looking at the reference real quick, her arms, again, they're going like this, so we want to make sure that the arms follow suit and meet up with the torso. Now my lines that I created earlier are already too small, and that's okay. They were guidelines in the first place. If they aren't encompassed, you're going to erase them later, and it's okay. So then I'm going to do the little pickle shapes that we talked about to get to the elbow joint. both sides. And you're free to change the position any way you would like to. I'm just going to go with hands on hips. And remember, do those circles for the joints once more. Same pickle shape, but now going in. Sort of creating a triangle with those arms. All right, and then doing the same for the legs. And they are bigger legs, so you need to encompass more, which means making bigger shapes again. If you want to draw someone who is bigger or has more meat on their bones, you have to make your shapes bigger. You can't create a bigger shape out of tiny bones. You can't do that. All right, so now I need my knee joint down here, which is another circle. And the legs, one is a little in front of the other. I'm just going to draw them right next to each other to make things a little more simple, as if the model were standing straight. And if you don't like this photo, you're free to find any of your own photos online to draw from. I just want you to have experience of drawing different proportions and different kinds of people, because no two people are the same, even twins. Okay, now I can't really see your feet in this photo, so if you want, you can just cut off the photo right there and pretend like there's no feet, but feet are important to practice, so I'm going to draw these circle joints for the ankles. And then I want to draw the foot going forward, so instead of drawing it sideways like a triangle that we did last week, I'm going to draw kind of a bell type shape going out from the bottom of that ankle joint. Then round it off to make it look like the foot is going forward. And then I'm going to do the other leg at a slight angle so it adds to that sass of holding onto her sides and hips. Slightly angling it, kind of like that bell shape, just slightly altered. Okay, so now we have the basic proportions, and you can already tell that it's a little bit thicker, but we need to really add some meat onto those bones in order to get it all together. Okay, so going back in, so we have a circle. We need a chin. Now, her head is at a slight angle. Again, for simplicity purpose, I'm going to just do it straight on. You can do it as close to the real thing as you want to. And I'm just going to, when creating the chin, I go on either side of the circle and go downward. Now this woman still has a very nice pronounced chin, so I'm going to try and put that in for her. Okay, so now we have the head fully, and now we need the neck. Now drawing a neck realistically, there are no perfectly straight lines, so try not to put your neck perfectly straight. There is a curve that goes into the shoulders. And realistically, where your neck meets up with your chin is actually right here along the jawbone. So I'm going to draw it right on the edge of this jawbone, going down. But if you're drawing in a more cartoonized style, you are free to make the neck as thick or thin as you want. Tim Burton does like straws for necks for him. But if you're going by principle of drawing realistically, try to find where it meets up with the jaw. I'm just drawing curved lines to help encompass that. Okay, so now we have the basic structure of this woman, and now we need to really just flesh it out to get who she is. So one thing I like to do first is I like to focus on the curves of the body right here. So I'm going to look at my photo real quick, and hers are very subtle, but they're nice, big curves that go into her hips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create sort of a curved shape going into our torso here, cutting into the shape slightly to emphasize those curves, then going back out to emphasize those hips. Sort of a small S shape to emphasize just how beautiful this woman is. Okay, and then I want to emphasize this on the other side too. And the way she's angled, you can see a bit more out of one arm than the other, so I'm going to try and do this really quick, just copying it on the other side. S shapes to emphasize her chest and her hip area, following the curve of the structure I have. Again, what we've created is the bones, and what we're doing now is we're putting meat on it. Alright, so now we have a beautifully large woman. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around the outside of our skeletal slash structural figure and just really hone in to make it look more like a person. I'll probably just fast forward through this part, but I'm just going around, really emphasizing those shapes. Don't forget the curves in the legs. And get those arms nice and big. Just outlining everything at this point. Right. And I forgot the hands, but you're free to do little mitten hands or triangle hands, or if you want to be really adventurous and try and do full-fledged hands, you're more than welcome to do that. But for the sake of time in this video, I'm going to do a more mitten-styled hand. So just going in right here, making it look like she has her hands on her hips. Thumb going off to the side. Okay, so now we have a big, beautiful figure. And once you have the figure all figured out, you can add clothing. She has sort of a skin-tight suit on to emphasize all of her curves. Which brings up another really good point. Pay attention to clothing when you're looking at a figure. Actually look at the person. Saying, oh yeah, I know, and then just ignoring your photo or ignoring the person you're drawing does not work. That is drawing from memory. It is not drawing from what you are seeing. Pay attention to what you're drawing. But as I was saying, clothing can impact how a person is seen as well. For example, Billie Eilish is a famous singer right now, and she wears very baggy clothing. Her clothing is meant to disguise her actual figure because she doesn't want the media talking about her figure. So she disguises it, which in turn makes her look like she has a much bigger figure than she actually does. Clothing can alter how a person looks, whether it's too tight or way big. So keep that in mind whenever you're drawing someone. Okay, and then I'll just quickly shade this in just to show that she's wearing a dark suit. Really quickly, I'll just zoom right through this. Okay, and then I'll add some hair onto her. She has some going off this way. Just super nice, blown out, beautiful, perfect model hair. I'm going to accentuate it a bit because I like doing hair. But when drawing hair, don't spend too much time drawing every single strand. If you draw every single strand, you're going to spend forever doing the hair. Draw the outline of the hair. That's what's most important. And when you're doing quick sketches like this to get the basic idea, you don't need every strand. You just need the essentials. All right, just very messy, really quick. All right, and there we have a plus-size model drawing. Now, the method that I showed you works for almost any style person you're trying to draw. Whether they're bigger or skinnier, you just have to accommodate the shapes that we talked about last week in order to change the proportion. So if I were going to draw a skinnier person than this, I would make the shapes much smaller. If I'm going to draw an even bigger person than this, I'm going to make the shapes much bigger. And basically, it's almost like sculpting. You get a big slab of clay, and then you just chip into it to get the shape you're looking for. Okay, I think that's everything, but I want you to try, at the end of this video, I'm going to have a few different pictures of people. I want you to pick one person and try and practice the proportions that they have. They're going to be on the screen for a few seconds, so pause the video on the photo that you want and take some time to practice proportions. I really, really want you to get the idea that everyone's unique and that they all have their own proportions, that everyone deserves to be represented. So, that's all for this week. I hope you have a fun time and have a good day.